U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a brief meeting during the Vatican's funeral for the late Pope. According to Zelenskyy's spokesperson, the two spoke for about 15 minutes at St. Peter's Basilica and also agreed to continue engagements later. The meeting took place away from the main service, highlighting ongoing diplomatic efforts between the two nations, and photos that were released by Zelenskyy's office show the leaders seated face-to-face in a marbled hall with no aides present. The encounter also drew some attention due to its timing as well as setting. Zelenskyy says the Vatican meeting with Trump could also prove historic, and on this we've roped in international relations analyst with Wits University, Professor Gilbert Khadiagala. Professor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Great to have you with us as always. So what are your current thoughts on these developments between Trump as well as Zelenskyy at the Vatican? Well, I suppose the spirit of unity that was often preached by the Pope actually resonated well and took over these two.
I think it was a solemn moment, and the meeting, in fact, underscored that solemnity that Trump and Zelenskyy, who shouted at each other not too long ago at the Oval Office, would actually meet on an occasion when they are commemorating the funeral of the Pope. So it looked very I think solemn to me, but also very confessional. It looked like they were saying very serious things to each other. We should open the doors, I think, for further negotiations, because the issue has been that Ukraine is worried that the US-led mediation is actually giving a lot of concessions to the Russians. So I think this was a good occasion for them to mend up their relationship, so that it may be a beginning of the US beginning to take a more even-handed position in the negotiations, so that Russia doesn't seem to be getting everything, as I think Ukrainians are afraid that Trump is giving too much to Russia. So I think it should be a good way to start that even-handed discussion about America's role in this mediation effort.
Well, I suppose it had to take Zelenskyy coming into South Africa and meeting also with President Cyril Ramaphosa. But I mean, we know, Professor, that already when Zelenskyy was here, it did look as though there were the moving pieces, in fact, in relation to the resolution of this current conflict. He did mention that he had actually revised the initial U.S. proposals of the ceasefire and sent it back for signing with Trump.
Yeah, I think you're right. All the pieces essentially are in place. But I think the diplomatic mission that he made here was symbolic enough, because he's been interested in South Africa's support for Ukrainian position. And when he came to, in fact, when the war started in 2023, Ukraine was very much interested in a South Africa that was very active in this conflict. So I think passing through here before the funeral at the Vatican reinforces the point that, in fact, Zelenskyy is a man of peace, is interested in ending the war. Trump says he is also interested in ending the war. But the problem now is, how does a mediator come in, like Trump or the Americans, and begin to look like they are really taking both sides seriously? Because for a long time it has appeared that Trump didn't really like Zelenskyy at all, and he was not very happy with Zelenskyy. So today's event, I think, is important to bring to establish a better relation between these two leaders.
Very interesting, Professor, because we also saw at the back of that very public spat between Zelenskyy and, of course, Trump in the Oval Office there, we saw how actually Zelenskyy was moving, even trying to garner external support through the EU members. But now the issue, let's go back to this, the issue of these non-conditional ceasefires that he also proposed or announced while he was here, and all this while the missiles were attacking Kiev. And we're still very unsure of the kind position of Putin at this stage as to how then is he going to be factored in as part of these negotiations.
Putin has had a few meetings with Stephen Witkoff, who is the special representative of President Trump. His position is not very clear. He's been trying to postpone the decision on a durable ceasefire. I think he did announce some ceasefire last week, but it doesn't seem like he's serious about that. So I think Ukrainian position is they have already made so many concessions, even around ceasefire and so on. But Putin doesn't seem to be reciprocating in the way he should. So the Americans really need to put more pressure on Putin to come up with a clear position on what does he really want in this war. Does he want a ceasefire? Does he want a lasting peace? Or is he simply going to continue to procrastinate on our peace process?
Absolutely, Professor, because we actually understand this 15-minute encounter between Zelensky and Trump was actually happening as Russia claimed that it had made significant territorial gains in the Ukraine. So one wonders once again then, what exactly, I mean, how are these negotiations really going to revolve around Putin if he's not being brought at the same table as Zelensky? And I think you and I have had this conversation a long time ago when the conflict actually began, that these three leaders, or two leaders in fact, need to be brought together and have the mediators so that it's ironed out, so that nobody is, you know, the left hand must know what the right hand is actually doing.
No, there were two meetings today. There was a Zelensky and Trump meeting, but there was also a second meeting between President Macron, Prime Minister Starmer of England, and then the two leaders. So this is probably, to me, an indication that the Europeans would now work more closely with the Americans to make sure that Putin can be brought back to the table. Because the bigger problem has been that Putin is not interested in a peace agreement. So we need more pressure on him. Europe and the EU work together, facilitate a more even, a more equitable agreement that is going to benefit both sides.
I'm losing you there, Professor. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your input as always. That is Professor Gilbert Khadiagala, the International Relations Lecturer at Wits University.